Privilege of declaring the 5th membership meeting of the HBCU Library Alliance in order. Welcome to each of you. This is indeed a significant meeting. It is our 5th membership meeting, but it is the 10th anniversary of the founding of our institution, of our organization. Now, the past decade has been busy, and it's been very productive. And if you would just let me share with you how productive we've been. With great deliberation, activities and projects have been undertaken to strengthen our institutions by strengthening our libraries and protecting and promoting the rich history of the Alliance, our institution, and our libraries. This is what our founding members did. They were very thoughtful about the direction that this organization would take. It was most important to the founding members that both seasoned and emerging leaders receive training, both theoretical and practical. As a result, we have a stellar leadership program with members of any leadership program. Stand up. Stand up and be recognized. The leadership program is in its 4th phase, and it has provided training that has improved teaching and learning on our campuses. Thank you so much for taking part in the leadership program. Thank you so much, Kate Nevins, from Lyricist, formerly, stand up, Kate, and be recognized. It was Kate's organization who helped us with the very first grant that enabled us to begin the leadership program. Thank you so much, Solanette, now Lyricist, Kate, and your staff. The founding members also thought it was very important that we not only preserve the history of the organization, but the history of our institutions. And so we have 2 stellar projects. The first is the digital project, and Janice Franklin is not here. She is one of the founding members and was very instrumental in starting the digital project. If you want to know anything about the founding of our institution, you need to go to that database. You'll have everything you need to know about how our stellar institutions were founded. Yesterday, for our pre-conference, we were involved in the photo preservation project. And this is another stellar project, funded again by Mellon. We call Mellon mother, maybe father, Mellon. They have funded so many of our projects, but this project helped us to preserve the photographs that are so important to the history of our institutions. So we're very pleased to do that. Now, Loretta, you wouldn't come up, but you're going to stand up. This is Loretta Perrin. Loretta Perrin was our founding member. She was the first chair of the organization, and she has moved us to the next level. We recognize Kate Nevins and Lyricist for what they've done with us with Mellon. Loretta wrote the first grant directly to the HBCU Library Alliance. It was the Preserving the Story grant. Thank you, Loretta. As I said, this was our first direct grant. It was funded by the Mellon Foundation, and it has allowed us to document and disseminate our history and to increase our visibility. And we know that increasing our visibility, not invisibility, but our visibility will certainly help us to attract other grants. So we are grateful to Loretta. Oftentimes, leaders just kind of drift away. Loretta has not done that. Thank you so much. We have also produced 2 editions of the State of Libraries at historical Black colleges and universities. And this data has been used by many of you to advocate for your library, to show your presidents your provosts, your chancellors, where you stand in relationship to other HBCU libraries. And it's Mantra here. Okay, she hasn't, stand up, stand up. Last year we got an email from Mantra, and she said that she was able to demonstrate to the leadership at her institution what they needed to do to make sure that her library was in par with other libraries. And she said she used the data from the state of libraries at historical Black colleges and universities. Thank you. These are just some highlights. As you can tell, it's been a very busy and productive 10 years. And I want you to know it has to continue. We are a young organization, but we've done much. But we are moving, we're not children anymore. We're becoming adolescents, teenagers. We gotta move. So I challenge you, each of you, to think about the next 10 years. We'll be asking you, as this meeting goes on, what can we do in the next 10 years? We want to hear from each of you. I now call this meeting to order. Cynthia Charles, the co-chair, will now join us.
Good morning, y'all. All right, welcome to New Orleans. All right, y'all had a good time so far? Yeah. Awesome. We are home of the Who Dats, Super Bowl 2013, Jazz Fest, yes indeed, Essence Festival, and a plethora of other stuff I can't remember. Mardi Gras, but anyway, welcome to New Orleans. I have been tasked to introduce our guest speakers, our guests today, I'm sorry, not guest speaker, our guests today. I'm sorry. Yeah, I was gone for like 3 days and I'm kind of out of sorts. But anyway, I'd like to introduce our honored guests. We have the, excuse me 1 minute. Right, our mayor is supposed to be here, Mayor Mitch Landry's not here, but we do have Mr. Charles Brown, who we'd like to for him to share a few words with us today. Is he here? No? Okay. Okay, we'll go on. Okay.
Now, you cannot ask for better timing than that. I want to apologize for being a little bit late. There's more construction going on downtown. I mean, I thought New Orleans was ready for anything, but the Super Bowl is just kind of driving us nuts, trying to get everything, you know, apple pie order for the Super Bowl coming in February. And then I ran into Flavia, whom you all are working with, I think, in the strategic planning process, and she and I worked together in Charlotte. So we had a chat for a minute or two, but it's a pleasure to be here with you this morning. And I want to welcome you to New Orleans and extend greetings to you from Mayor Mitch Landry, who unfortunately cannot be here with you today. Mayor Landry is one of the business people I have ever seen. He was elected to office in February of 2010, and since that time he's been profiled twice on 60 Minutes, so you've probably seen him perhaps on 60 Minutes, for all of the various things that he's doing to make New Orleans a better city and to recover from the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. His work has really resulted in some really significant improvements. I'm going to tell you about a few at the library in a minute, but also New Orleans has been cited by the U.S. Census as the fastest growing city in the United States. And also under his leadership last week, Condé Nast, the travel magazine, identified New Orleans as one of the 10 best cities in America. So you come to a very exciting place at a very exciting time. I know that we have 3 historically Black colleges and universities here. You have all of their own universities here in the city of New Orleans. Dillard, Southern University at New Orleans, and Xavier. And the city works indirectly with them, but the city works directly with the public library. And we have made a remarkable, or we're in the process of making a remarkable recovery from Hurricane Katrina. Immediately following the hurricane, all 12 of the then public library buildings in the city of New Orleans were damaged, and half of them were damaged beyond repair. And just this year, between March and July, we opened 5 new replacement libraries. 4 of them opened over a 4-week period of time, and 3 of them opened in just 6 days. So you talk about a crazy making time at the New Orleans Public Library. The staff did an incredible job, but the libraries are alive and well and vibrant in the city of New Orleans. Again, I would like to thank you all for selecting New Orleans for your meeting this, I'm not sure how long, will it be going for several days? Until tomorrow. I know that you have important work to do while you're here, but in addition to getting your work done, whether this is your first visit to New Orleans or your 20th, I hope you'll find time to take advantage of some of our many cultural offerings. The food, I'm a living testament to the food in New Orleans. Our music, our sightseeing opportunities in terms of architectural uniqueness. This really is the Big Easy and a great American city, and we thank you for choosing this venue for your meeting. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to stay for just a few minutes if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, next I'd like to introduce my boss, my provost at Dillon University, Dr. Phyllis Worthy Dawkins.
Good morning. Good morning. It's good to be back in New Orleans. Cynthia, Charles, and I, your co-chair, just returned from an invigorating conference at the HBCU Faculty Development Conference in Orlando, where it was not hot, surprisingly. So welcome to New Orleans. On behalf of our new president, Walter Kimbrough, faculty, staff, and students, we welcome you to New Orleans. Dillon was founded in 1869 by Straight University and New Orleans University. It was merged in 1935 with classes starting in 1939. Our current library was named in 1961 by one of our former presidents, Will Alexander, now known as the Will Alexander Library. Shortly after Katrina, we had major damage, and once again, our mother and father, Andrew Mellon Foundation, came through again and helped us renovate the facility. Under the leadership of Dean Cynthia Charles, we have made major strides in renovating and restoring the library. But many of you may know one of your founding members, Dean Tommy Holton. I had the privilege of meeting Tommy Holton before I arrived at Dillon in 2009. I had the privilege of also working with him for 2 years before he died and passed away. But Dean Holton, as you know, was very engaging. He gave all that he could to anyone that he met. I met him through the Southern Education Foundation, the ITAP project. And so as you move through your conference today, celebrating your 5th meeting, please remember Dean Holton. And I also want to acknowledge the contribution of Cynthia Charles once again. Thank you. Thanks, Dr. Dawkins. Checks in the mail. Okay, I'd like to introduce Dr. James Lorenz, Chancellor of Southern University here in Baton Rouge.
Good morning. I was saying before I came here, when I saw that Dr. Francis was going to be on the program too, I said, please don't let me go after Dr. Francis. And so my prayers were answered. You know, you never want to to follow an icon, a legend, as Dr. Francis is. Just as a note, Dr. Francis, I'm the only one in my family that didn't go to Xavier. Two sisters, brother, nieces, nephews, daughter. I made the change, I made the switch. On behalf of the Southern University system, I want to welcome all of you here to New Orleans. We are the only historically black college and university system in the country. We have the Baton Rouge campus, which I serve as chancellor, is what we like to call our flagship campus. But we've actually started in New Orleans over 100 years ago, and we're about to celebrate in 2 years. We'll celebrate 100 years in Baton Rouge. But we are the flagship campus. At one time, we housed both our law school and our agricultural research center. Those two campuses split, and even though they're on the Baton Rouge landmass, now make up a separate campus in the system. So there's a chancellor of the law school and a chancellor of the agricultural research and extension center. And we have Southern University in New Orleans, our campus here, headed by Chancellor Victor Upolo. And so that campus came back again, devastated, truly devastated by Hurricane Katrina, and is back to where its student population, I think is about to match its pre-Katrina levels. And then we have a campus in Shreveport, which is a 2-year campus. So we're headed by Dr. Ron Mason, who is housed in Baton Rouge as head of the Southern University system. So I welcome you here, not just as Chancellor of the Southern University Baton Rouge campus, but on behalf of the entire Southern University system. I also understand that our choir is supposed to be here this morning, and I'll let you know that we have one of the, I won't say the best because I know all of you believe that, that you'll have the best, so I'll say one of the best choirs, and they're probably stuck in the traffic that Mr. Brown spoke about, because I left Baton Rouge at 6:30 this morning, and I got here about 15 minutes ago, and they were supposed to leave at 7 on the bus. So hopefully they'll get here very soon. The other thing that was not mentioned when we were talking about New Orleans and everything that New Orleans is, and the Super Bowl and everything, there was another event that we failed to mention, and that is the Bayou Classic. And so we'll be here in New Orleans in November, Thanksgiving weekend, with our regular matchup between Southern University and Grambling State. Dean Perry doesn't like me to remind her that she's a graduate of Grambling State, especially considering their current record. But this is a big event. And I think it's again one of the economic drivers for the city of New Orleans. We come in on Thursday. This year is the second year. We'll have a parade on Thursday and go all the way through to the game, the Battle of the Bands, the Greek show. We have a gospel brunch. And our alumni from all over the country and the world are going to be back here in November. I don't want to take up a lot of time. I just want to say that we understand the challenges that all of you face, that all HBCUs face in terms of declining revenue. And so we're forced to establish these priorities. I know that as Chancellor of the Baton Rouge campus, what we've experienced over the past few years, a 30% reduction in state appropriations. We are faced with having to make some very, very critical choices in terms of how we allocate our resources. Those priorities, and the library becomes one of those things that is very challenging for me as a chancellor to face in terms of where do you place those cuts. It's not an easy thing to do, because we know that libraries are also a critical component of the university and the health of the university, not only in terms of keeping the students that are there and providing them with the resources they need, but also being able to attract future students, knowing that you have to keep up with the challenges facing libraries, you have to keep up with technology advances and where we're going. So I applaud you on that. I hope that you will have a very, very productive conference. I heard about increasing visibility. That, I think, is key for us as HBCUs, and libraries can play a major role in that, specifically in terms of preserving our history and letting people know who we are, what we've done, what we have accomplished, and what we will continue to accomplish, regardless of what anyone says about the viability and the relevance of HBCUs. And maintaining that level of service, maintaining that support for our students is critical. Again, on behalf of the Southern University system, welcome to Louisiana, welcome to New Orleans. Hopefully our choir will make it here. If they do, they'll come here, so you'll hear them sometime this morning. They'll be here if they're on their way. We would have liked to have had the band here for you, but it's a small venue, so we can't do that. I will say that we do have the best band in the country. Now, I'll let you challenge me on that. But we've been voted. I mean, national television has told us that we are, so we have to believe them, right? The human jukebox. Again, thank you. Have a great, great conference. I'm going to share a few minutes with you and then take a chance to meet with a couple of our board members here in New Orleans this morning and head back to Baton Rouge. Thank you very much.
And our last guest is the Honorable, infamous Dr. Norma Francis of Xavier University in New Orleans.
Thank you very much and good morning. Just said to Dr. Lauren, the one thing is fortunate for me, I don't have to worry about a band or a football team. There are other words I have. Let me thank you for being here. We've just come through a long 2 weeks, just dedicated, blessed a new chapel. We've never had a separate standing chapel on our campus in our 80 plus years. And our foundress, who is a saint now, has been for about 10 years now. One of the interesting parts of my life is that I stand on the shoulders of 3 females. So when I hear people talking about the power of females, or quote, maybe the weakness, so-called of females, I'm so happy to say I'm standing on the shoulders of 3 females, all nuns, and more particularly, my foundress is the only American-born saint of the Catholic Church. Now, there are a lot of institutions named after saints, but we're the only one that was founded by a saint. And we happen to be the only black Catholic university in the United States. Now, I say that in welcoming you because there are several things I want to mention. First of all, when I looked at the letter and saw what you were aiming to do, I thought, how appropriate. Mention, of course, one is to encourage excellence in library programming, service in support of teaching, learning, and research. When one more particularly was the issue of leadership and looking back at who we are and whose we are. Right now, let me give a preference. For some of you know, I've been at this business a long time. I've been in HBCU and HBCU since 1957, and I've spent 45 years as a president. Now, if you're trying to figure out my age, I was 15 when I started. But I mention this to you because I've had a front row seat since Kennedy was president of the United States. So I have been involved with the national scene, politics, government, and the like, since Kennedy, every president since Kennedy. And I've watched this country over these years, and I'm talking specifically about in education, and more specifically about HBCUs. And I've never been more concerned about this country and HBCUs than I have been in my 45 years. Now, don't take that as saying I am so concerned that I've lost faith. Not at all. And I say this because if anybody ever wondered about faith, I'm a living example of having faith. And faith in the sense of describing believing so much in something that you don't know, but you believe that it is, that you work hard and harder. If you know it, it's not faith. And more particularly, what has concerned me more than ever, we have had to be resilient and we had to have faith. And what's so significant about your being in New Orleans, New Orleans has been a resilient city. I'm not going to go all the way back, you can read that history, but the history that we faced in 2005 with Katrina. You've heard all of the other speakers before and said what Katrina was. It was devastating, and it was devastating to those of us who were universities in this city, Southern, Dillard, Xavier specifically, and of course the others. But we got hit harder than any. And were we not resilient as this city is resilient, or did not have faith, I wouldn't be standing here, Dr. Lauren wouldn't be talking about Suno, and our good friend would not be talking about Dillard. And I mean that very sincerely. But it wasn't just Katrina. It was Katrina, it was Rita, and then it was Gustav. And then on the 7th anniversary of Katrina, here comes Isaac. So we've been through many, many natural disasters. But the one that we have to be concerned about is the disaster that we face, and we faced for 100 and some odd years. Back 1855, I think Wilberforce and Lincoln are still arguing about who was first. But let's say since 1855, we have had to deal with all kinds of challenges. And money has always been in the center of it. But we have been able to do more with so little than anybody else in the United States. So that when we get asked, and let me say, I got asked when I was named president what I thought the future at HBCU was. And the question was sort of just rhetorical. It meant, in fact, aren't y'all going out of business now since things have been settled, civil rights movement been passed? And the question has been, do you need to exist? I get asked that now. And there are people who are writing about us now who don't know what our legacy is. So when you talk about looking back at the legacies of libraries, you're talking about looking back at the history of HBCUs. And I'm going to try to get this correctly. My Senior Vice President of Academic Affairs is here, and he's heard me say this a few times, and I sort of ad-lib it, but I'll try to do it right. Because so many people are writing today about us, today, who know a little about us, I'll tell you about the African proverb. Maybe many of you remember it. Until the lion tells his story about hunting, the tales of hunting will always glorify the hunter. Remember that. Until we tell our story, the tales of higher education will always glorify the writer who did not know what our history was. So you have started on a very important role, telling the history. But not only that, you're going to talk about strategic innovations for the future. Now, we couldn't be here if we weren't strategic. We've been doing strategies for years, but the problem is we have been doing it out of necessity, out of making sure we continue to be quality, but we didn't write most of that down. We didn't plan it. We met the wolves at the door every time, but now it's time to do the strategies, to do the planning and the like, and to make sure it's grounded in what you say, making sure we are excellent, making sure we are teaching and learning, and making sure we're doing research. And we must enhance our role in libraries. We can't stand still. You talk about the infrastructure. Technology has moved this to a completely new dimension. globally. Dr. Blank and I, on this weekend, had our celebration of the opening of the Confucius Institute, and we had our delegation from China. It is amazing, amazing how countries around the world, but particularly China, is interested in, quote, getting a closer relationship with the United States and we with them. Our particular work with them will be, interestingly, pharmacy. We have a college of pharmacy, the only one in the southern part of the state. There's one in the northeast in Monroe. And it's an interesting story. We're the only pharmacy school in New Orleans. And when Loyola, our companion, left pharmacy, I'll never forget the headline of the local paper. Listen to this, headline of the local paper: "We have lost our pharmacy school in New Orleans." Well, I left my office and I went with the headline and said, "What are you talking about? We're 4 blocks from you." Remember Ellison, the invisible person? Well, you can't walk into a drugstore in New Orleans, and don't ask the pharmacist, where did you graduate from? Ask him, what year did you graduate from SAU? I say this to you because it took almost 5 years, before anybody other than an African American would enter Xavier. 5 years. They didn't think our ice was as cold as the ice everywhere else. And when people learned that it was, we now are 20% Vietnamese, 20% majority American, and the rest African American. But I'm telling you this story to say that the future is going to be for us to be competitive. And you are in a very critical role. Yours really is in the centerpiece. It's like the merry-go-round. Anybody remember the merry-go-round? It's the center. It's where faculty members, staff members are going to have to come to learn more about J-Star. Let me tell you an inside story. When the president of Canal was developing with somebody else, J-Star, I got to know him years ago. I was on the college board. He was on the college board. He was president of Princeton. And he called me and talked about J-Star. As it happens, I said, well, do you have any African-American HBCUs in the program? He's like, oh, now this is a good man, but he was planning this. And I said, you know, we can use J-Star too. Now, I mentioned that to you because for you, it's leadership. You have got to be where decisions are being made, where policies are being made, and spend your time. Is there a meeting on such and with the library? Send somebody. Send somebody to talk about the legacy, what we do, why we do it, and why it's important. I'm taking a little time because the choir is here, but they're probably setting up. I'm known to be ad-libbing here and there. But there's an old story about strategy and planning. If you don't have an agenda, in fact, for those who remember social and pleasure clubs, remember had those social and pleasure club? I know my daddy was in one years ago. Well, if they had a meeting and they sat and they said, well, what's the agenda? Everybody looks around, says, well, I don't know. And then this little guy sitting in the back said, well, I got an agenda. Whose agenda is the meeting? This little fella. And they say, if you don't have an agenda and go to lunch, you will be the lunch. So I say to all of you, in the strategies, have an agenda, follow your agenda, and then assess what it was that your strategy. Again, we didn't do enough assessments in our earlier lives, but it was there to tell a marvelous story. talk about value added, value added. And here's that big cloud in America right now. Right now. It's not talking about value added. You know what it's talking about? Retention. How many students go from their freshman year to their sophomore year? Now, nobody has asked the question, if they left Dillard, Xavier, Southern, and like, why did they leave? Now, the man or woman in the street who will get these reports will say, well, they didn't stay there because they weren't smart enough. They couldn't do the work. The record shows that that's not the case. The majority, we are finding in the research that we are doing, they're leaving while making academic progress, but they don't have the money. So it's fiscal. But how does the formula work? Who started and who wasn't there at the end? Or who started, who didn't go in their sophomore year? That's the retention rate, that's the graduation rate. Well, I'm working on the formula, and I'm hoping that the Department of Education will take it. Let's do the formula that says how many started, but how many left making academic progress, but did not have the money. And then put that on the web. Then you can put the other on the web, that's all right. We ask a lot of people to try somewhere else because maybe they'd be better off. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's that one that's going to kill us if we don't change that formula. And we are going to lose students because they're going to say, whoa, don't go there. That graduation rate should be, or the retention rate. But that's just part of what's in the future. I said I wasn't going to mention it, but I'll say it anyway. You go back to your campuses and ask your presidents, is he or she losing sleep today because of the Parent Plus loan? Do you know anything about that? Department of Education changed the criteria from last year to this year, and 50% of students who go to your institutions, parents, were turned down for a loan. And many institutions have lost students, and those of us who took them in have this long collection job on our hands because we couldn't afford to lose them. My point in saying this to you, none of us knew that that criteria had been changed until basically registration. Registration. I can go on with a few others, but I'm saying to you that the future is going to be challenging, but that's not any reason why we should, quote, faint, say that we're going out of business. We have been resilient. We need to continue to be. The program you're about in libraries, which is so critical, is the right road. You know, as the old saying, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. So you want to be on the right road. You want to have a plan. And what makes this so important, this is a global world. I mentioned the Chinese were here for the last 3 days with us. They are excited. Now, I know why they're excited. China has to have a better image in the world. The perception is not good, and they want to change. But I had to tell you, despite what other folks are saying, China is the big elephant. And we owe China a lot of money. And we can act all hippity-dip we want, hold our nose up. We are dependent upon a partnership and a relationship with China. And the sooner we get to understand that, the better off we'll all be. But that's true globally. So, as I welcome you in this long speech, and I didn't say that much about Xavier, it's not so much about us as us together, us in partnerships and the like. And I can say to you, what's needed today in this country is for people to understand that we are all in this together, that whatever happens at the gas pump, whatever happens in education, and it's happening, this sequestration that's taking place in the Congress right now, we don't have a budget in the United States right now, and we're not going to have one, I bet, until maybe 2013. 2013. Why? We don't have one now, So when the Congress changes, the new folks coming in and say, oh, I don't want to do that budget. They want to start another budget. And there we are. My only point in saying is, we are all together in this. And for people to try to divide us, to not say, well, you got a hole on your side of the boat. Well, if I got a hole on my side of the boat, we all in this boat together. So we all better start praying together. And let me close by saying, God will never give us more than we can bear. Remember that. Remember that. It may sound like it's all about to end. No, but it's important to know that it's beginning and we're going to prepare for it. So you have chosen an organization 10 years old that should grow to be much older. But while you grow, you should be preparing as you are to be stronger, more resilient, and have faith. Thank you very much. About one thing that my senior vice president said, we are looking for a new librarian. And if anybody is interested, he's sitting there with a whole lot of cards. And the one thing we did build about 10 years ago was a pretty big library, well-equipped and the like. All we need is somebody and bodies to run it. And our mantra for you, and I'm asked this question all the time, how in the world did you stay to be president now 45 years? The average tenure of president is about 6 years. Some is 2 or 3. But the secret is simple. And for all of you in leadership roles, you employ or hire people smarter than you and get out of their way.
Thanks so much, Dr. Francis, and thanks to all of our guests. We also have several other guests that we'd like to acknowledge. We'd like to ask Dr. Peter Silver, President of Alabama State, to stand so we can recognize you. Also, we'd like for Dr. Ron Blakely, Associate Director of the White House Initiative of HBCUs, to please stand. He is speaking us today. Although we don't know his name, but we do know that he is your Senior Vice President for Academic Affairs at Xavier University in New Orleans. Can you tell us your name? I'm sorry.
Dr. Lauren Blanchard.
Dr. Lauren Blanchard, please acknowledge him. Great, thank you so much. We'd like to take about 5 minutes to get the choir to set up and take a 5-minute break. And the choir is set up, and then we'll be ready to hear Southern University's choir.